Next here on WCWP, it's the 2019 WCWP Homecoming Weekend.
It's Homecoming Weekend on WCWP Brookville.
You're listening to Homecoming Weekend with Art Beltrone on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Another year is here. 1 year since last year's program, and I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be here again. And a special thanks to Jeff and Pat Kroll, who serve as the engineer and the coordinator of this show. I really do appreciate that. And for all of those who are participating today. Today is a very special show. We're celebrating a number of things, including the service of postgraduates who served in the military back in the 1960s during the Vietnam War. Now, I graduated from Post in 1963, went into the Marine Corps Reserve, and did not have to serve. I served 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserve in Garden City with the 2nd Battalion, 25th Marines, 4th Marine Division, but we were never activated. Came close a couple of times, but fortunately we didn't have to go. And but because of there were so many of the men here at Post during that period who did serve, we brought a number of them back for later on in the show, and we'll be talking to them about their Vietnam experience as well as their experience here at Post, especially leading up to them going off to Vietnam. But right now, I would like to welcome to the show Joan Yonke, the Director of Development and the Annual Fund at CW Post. Joan, thank you so much for being here.
Art, it is an absolute pleasure to be here and so nice to finally meet you in person.
Joan and I have been talking, I don't know, for the past couple of years. Numerous issues, and she has been so helpful with information that have allowed the first program to go on and locating those members of the Post early classes who we wanted to talk to about their reminiscences. And it's basically a reminiscence show, and just to preserve the memories of what happened back then. Mm-hmm. And so tell us now, with how is the alumni doing with all the changes that are happening here at Post? What's going on?
Oh, there's so much going on, but all great things. And, it's just a great opportunity to, as you said, think about our past and where we've been and where we're going, and the importance of capturing what the past was. And as we merge into Division I and moving forward as one LIU, the alumni team really is focused on a lot of events that incorporate all campuses, and we've really been doing that the last couple of years. So whenever we host something, it's inviting everybody. We invited everybody back to the Post campus for the game this weekend. We've got Brooklyn students coming that'll be staying overnight on campus. So it's going to be great, and it's just, bringing the best of all the alums and the different campuses, and, we have so much to celebrate and be excited about as we move into this new era and the great things that are on the horizon for us.
That's wonderful. And have you sensed a lot of enthusiasm from the current students as well as the previous students?
Yeah, I think it's people still trying to understand what this new transition is. But, if you're coming this weekend to the game, you'll see on campus here, it's just really spectacular, and the energy is up, and people are excited. At this campus, Brooklyn campus, and it's exciting to have. We've hosted alumni events where Brooklyn people have come over to the Post campus and really enjoyed themselves here, and vice versa, having events at the Brooklyn campus. So it's exciting to see, and just that we've got the best of both worlds. You can get all different types of atmosphere, so it's great.
After the game tomorrow, there's something special planned. What's happening there?
Yes, back to the Rathskeller, the old bar that used to be here on campus. We've got a great crew of alums coming to celebrate after the game. It'll be, I think it's $25 or $30, all you can drink and eat. And we've got a trivia game happening. We've got a DJ. So it'll be a really great opportunity to meet up with old friends, make new friends, and have a good time.
Let me share something with you about the Rat. I believe it was the Rat. back then, when I was there, was the Rat still there in 1960? Was it established then as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so Hugh Beheimer, who was the director of the library, and he was the advisor for my fraternity, Sigma Beta Epsilon, and Marjorie Merriweather Post was there. She attended an event there, and so I was talking to the Professor Beheimer, and we were both wearing our fraternity pins, and I suggested to him, what if we made her honorary house mother? And Beheimer, Brother B, said, yeah, let's go over it. And somebody had spiked the punch.
Uh-oh.
So we had a little bit of laxity to us and fun. So we both walked over to her, and we introduced ourselves, and he said, we would like to make you our honorary house mother, Mr. Post. Would you welcome that idea? And she said, I would be honored if that happened. He took off his fraternity pin and pinned her. And from that point on, she became our honorary house mother, and every year would invite the fraternity brothers down to Washington and set them up with dates with a sorority down there. And
great
host
lady.
them to a dinner.
She was a
Thank
great
you
lady.
so much, Joan, for being with us. I mean, this has been wonderful. Really appreciate your presence here.
All right. Yes, Art. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Jeff, thank you so much. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, and Pat being here as well, because of your background together. This is something that has happened in numerous occasions where two students have wound up joining one another in matrimony after their time in college.
All right. Well, for those who are just tuning in or tuned in a moment after you started, you're hearing from Art Beltrone, who helped start this place. And we're going to have a whole thing about that coming up here in a few minutes. And I'm Jeff Kroll, and along with my wife, Pat. Pat is with us here today.
Say hello, Pat.
Hello, everybody.
And we are the coordinators of this homecoming weekend, proud to do so for a number of years now. Great to have you back, and great to see Joan again here. And I'm, for the most part, I'm behind the scenes here, just pushing the buttons and keeping you going. And Pat's keeping you on time. That's her job here.
You're running early. You're actually running early, Art. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Without both of you, this would never happen. And,
yeah. In fact,
so I'm glad you're here, Joan, because you see behind the scenes what's happening here. Were you a Post student yourself?
I was not.
Okay.
But you know what? In my short 3.5 years here, I've come to truly love the university, the campuses, the people, Art, Jeff, Pat. It's great. It's great alumni here.
Yeah, and it's when I come back, and I haven't come back that often, but last year and this year, it's like being home again. It really is. And, there are memories here that were created back in my time, and I'm sure in your time, Jeff and Pat, that are still with you today. Like that incident with, at the Rat with Marjorie Merriweather Post.
This was always our second home. We'd race from class and, come here and hang out as well as do the jobs that, we all did so well back then. Mm-hmm. But it was always our home. I mean, we were here at nights, weekends, vacations. Oh, we got to go to the station. It was like, that's where we're going. Because none of us, a good chunk of us, Jeff and I, did not live on campus. We were commuter students at the time.
Yeah. We have one advantage over you, Art. The station that went on the air here first in 1961, that we're going to talk about in a moment or two, was not located in this building. This building was built in 1965, which is after you graduated.
Yes.
But for Pat and for me and for so many others, this is the same building that we were in as students. I first set foot in here in the fall of 1971, so 48 years ago. It's the same building. Sure, studios get rebuilt. There's new paint or new carpet or new lighting, whatever, but it's the same building. And I'm here a lot in my times around here. I still work with some students in the sports department and stuff, but it is something to walk into the place that you were in as a student. And we get that from our other participants here this weekend, people who haven't been here in many years. They walk in, it's like, oh oh my goodness, this is the place. This was it. It's the same place, and it's a fall weekend, and the memories then come flooding back. And that's what homecoming is around the school. Our idea was to have a radio reunion, and then we kind of incorporated it with the school many, many years ago, back in the late 70s. So we've been doing this a long time. If people come back, and that's what homecoming's all about. People coming back home again. And the students don't like it because, the place gets overrun with people that they say, why are these people on? Get off my campus. Get out of here.
Well, the only good thing,
back.
excuse me, the only good thing now is we don't have to worry about tests, papers.
Right? Yes.
Calling home and saying, I'm not going to be home for a while, all that. So we can do whatever we like when we're here, and we just really enjoy each other's company. And a lot of us stay in touch. It's not just a once-a-year thing for us. So.
But what's really amazing is the dedication to something that you both were involved with and got to love, and fell in love also.
Well, that's the thing.
time.
I mean, this is it for us. This is where we began and probably where we're going to end.
And then a number of people went to school here and took broadcasting classes and things to get into the business, and many didn't. Pat didn't work professionally in the business. I did for 10 years and then got smart, got out, went into private business. But many went on to long careers in the business. So it's I think we should blow that song off and just keep talking about the station a little bit, huh?
No, I think we should play the song.
Oh, you want to play the song?
The one thing I just want to say is that you brought it up, Jeff. Jaron Jewell was going to be a guest from the library archive. She couldn't be here, but it's very important for all those out there listening, especially those who are affiliated with WCWP. Please, Jaron is trying to archive any of the historical material that you may have in your own personal archives from shows you have been participating in back during your school years. Please contact Jaron Jewell.
All right, now you requested.
I requested this.
That we play in honor of that Pat and I met here at the station. What is our favorite song, right?
Yep, here it is.
Maybe.
Maybe.
There it is.
Finally decided to play. Every couple has their song. This is our song. It's Frankie Valli with Can't Take My Eyes Off You from 1967. This is the WCWP Homecoming Weekend.
You're just too good to be true.
Wow, what a memorable song. I remember that so well. I'm so glad that was your song that you selected. But we had one other thing that came up.
Happens
Joan,
to be, my song that I danced to at my wedding 4 years ago. Happens to be the same song.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Oh, my gosh.
Great memories.
Thank you so much, Joan, for being with us.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
Now, a very special moment here at WCWP. Art, 58 years ago at this very minute, what happened?
The station, WCWP, as a carrier current AM station, went on the air.
And this is what it sounded like.
Radio station WCWP, the voice of CW Post College, is on the air. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are about to hear another first of CW Post College, one of the fastest growing schools in New York State. Here is Art Beltrone, Chief Program Director.
Thank you, Dennis. CW Post College was founded 7 years ago on October 29, 1954. At that time, the school was operated by a faculty of 12 in the 5 buildings which comprised the estate of Mrs. Marjorie Merriweather Post. Today, with 22 buildings on our campus, a student body numbering nearly 4,000, and a faculty approximately numbering 250, we are one of the outstanding small colleges in the East. Buildings and additions have been erected which were inconceivable on that 1954 founding date. we talked to one of the alumni of that first graduation class, Mr. Mark Bilker, who is presently the Associate Public Relations Officer of Post College. He had this to say about the development of the college.
Well, as you say, in 1954, when the college was founded, they had just the buildings which were part of the original estate of Mrs. Post. In 1955, when the first class entered the college, these same buildings were still the only buildings on the actual campus. Some of them were changed around to meet the needs of the student body rather than the needs of people living on an estate. The academic portion of the campus has seen chemistry building, biology laboratories, physics building, engineering drawing, and mathematics buildings constructed in the past 7 years. We now have 3 dormitories on the campus and a very large dining hall. These buildings, the latter 3, have been completed in the last year and a half. The library, which was originally a guest house on the campus, was, of course, converted to reading rooms and stack rooms. And last September, a new wing was attached to the library. On the extracurricular side, we have football field, soccer and lacrosse field. We have a brand new all-weather track that is the first of its kind to be used in this country.
Thank you, Mr. Bilker. 2 years ago, a group of students and your announcer felt that a school such as Post would benefit a great deal from a radio station. We organized a small club at first, and at the meetings that followed, we talked radio, making hopeful plans for the establishment of a carrier current station, leading eventually into an FM station. Our faith and hopes in the reality of the station were kept alive by one of the speech teachers at Post, Professor V.J. Lee. Dennis?
The actual building was not completed during 1960, but one important thing did happen. This was the Student Council's act, which granted the club its budget. Therefore, when the school started in September of 1961, the seeds were there to sow. Again, under the direction of Professor Lee, an organizational plan was established, one that would get the best possible work done. The club began to grow. A studio was designed and installed. Equipment was purchased. Surveys were conducted and programming was decided upon. Yes, many persons and groups were helpful, but if it weren't for both the president of our college, Admiral Richard Connolly, and Dean R. Gordon Hoxie, these electrical impulses would not be transmitted through the air at this moment. Art?
Thank you. That was Dennis Sullivan back there in 1961.
On this exact date, at this exact time. Yes.
Can you believe that?
Isn't that remarkable? It's actually a fluke, that homecoming would start on October 18th. It's decided there has to be a home football game, of course, on the weekend. And October 18th then is Friday with the game tomorrow. We actually went on the air. That was a Wednesday back in 1961 for those that are keeping track of such minutia. But here we are, 58 years later, and the same gentleman who started on the air there that day is here with us again today. We're honored to have you here, Art. Art Beltrone, your host here for the first segment of Homecoming Weekend, which is going to run for 60 hours. So sit back and get ready because we're here for a long time. The alumni have taken over, and we don't give the station back until midnight on Sunday.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and I'm so glad that you had me here, and it's really an honor and such a great pleasure to be here on this very day, 58 years later after I remember going to Dean DeMar at that time. I had been a student at Sewantica High School before coming to Post, and Sewantica at the time had an FM radio station that I participated in from being a freshman right on through my senior year. And when I got to Post, I looked around and I asked, administrators, where is the radio station? And there was no radio station. So it kind of sparked some interest, and I visited with Dean Frederick DeMar, who was the Dean of Students at the time. And Dean DeMar was Fred DeMar, who's long gone now, but he's passed away. He was with with the University of Maryland before he came to Post, and he had some experience with radio at the University of Maryland, and it was not too favorable experience. So when I proposed to him that could we somehow get a radio station started, he was a little bit on a negative side as he was smoking his Pall Mall cigarettes and at his desk and had his big University of Maryland ring on. But he said, listen, we can probably find a couple $100 for you to try and get something going. And I had a part-time job at NBC after my high school years. I wanted to go into radio because I thought, well, let me get a job at NBC and maybe I could meet somebody. And so I got a job delivering mail from the mailroom, thinking that's the way to break in. And of course, that isn't the way to break in. So I decided to go to college and came to Post. But I knew the people at NBC, and I kept the job in the news department part-time and got to know some of the engineers. So a control board, the very first control board, came from NBC for WCWP as a carrier current. So that's how it all began, and look where it's evolved to. So,
now, that's 58 years ago today.
Yes.
The station was not on FM at that time, at 88.1 FM, as we are today. That didn't occur until 1965. It was a whole thing that led up to that. So this station was just heard here on the campus, correct?
And let me tell you a story there, because we were in the studio and wanted to know, if we had programs going on, we wanted to know, are we on the air? So we had to have members of the staff go outside in their car, park under a telephone line, turn on the station, and they'd come running back in and say, you're on the air.
So that's in 1961. The building that we're sitting in was built for the FM signal that went on in March of 1965. So where did you broadcast from back in 1961?
It was from a low building, and it's almost as you come in the west gate of Post now. If you look to your left, you'll see a low white building, and it was in that building. I forget the other classes, but it was in there that they established the station and gave us some tables and chairs, and that was the location.
And the building that we're in now, the Abrams Communications building, was built in 1965, really back in the woods in those days. There was nothing here. And even in my days, later in the 70s, you had to traipse through the woods to get in here, and it was very muddy in the rain and the snow, and there was always a collection of shoes by the front door because they didn't want you to traipse the mud into the studios. So on those rainy days, the shoes would all collect by the front door, and then we'd all run around here barefoot.
All right.
You're listening to Homecoming Weekend with Art Beltrone on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
Thank you so much, very much. That was a great song. We all remember it. And right now we have another guest who played a major role in WCWP, Bill Mozer, who was the WCWP Director of Broadcasting back from 1965 to he was involved with the station from 65, became Director of Broadcasting in 1969,
right,
and went through 1989. Bill, welcome to this.
Thank you. Homecoming is truly homecoming for me, too.
Yeah, it's so nice that you could be here. Tell us about the early days. What was it like back then?
Well, I started here right out of high school. My mother-in-law was the assistant to a dean at Pressback in the business school here. And so I'm a high school kid. I had just graduated in 1965, and she said, they got a radio station over there. Well, I was chomping at the bit to come over. The station had only been on the air for less than 2 months. And so they were delighted to have somebody for the summer to help out. And so that launched my career in broadcasting right here in the same building, the Abrams Communications Center. Wow. In 1967, I took over as the chief engineer. And there was, I guess it was Harry Lowenthal was the chief engineer at the time. And Bob Fratello was another name from the past. Both of those guys had engineered the station. So in 67, I became the chief engineer. And in 1969, we had a major issue with Steve Post from WBAI being installed as the director of broadcasting. That lasted about 2 months. When something went on the air that was really distasteful and unacceptable and bordered on, we're going to lose our license, I was summoned to an emergency meeting in Dean Mates's home, and he said, we got to do something now. And I was directed to disable the transmitter in 1969. The station was off the air for 2 months. The building was occupied by dissidents. Dozens of people who had never worked in the station camped in here on the basis that it was their radio station. It was the university's radio station. It wasn't the students' radio station. They operated it. William Kunstler was hired to defend the First Amendment rights of the students who were displaced by closing down the station. That was summarily dismissed by a judge in Brooklyn, saying, no, the university has every right to maintain a radio station on whatever level they felt appropriate. The president at the time, Robert Payton, called me in and he said, well, now what are we going to do? The station's been off the air for 2 months. If we're going to lose our license based on the obscene broadcast, now are we going to lose our license by not being on the air? He said, you're the only person that we trust. We're the only person that has any experience at this. Can you put us back on the air? And I did that in late 1969, early 70, with the help of people that had worked here in the past. Many of them became quite successful in the broadcasting business. And year after year after year, they signed another contract with me. That lasted for 20 years until 1989. Okay. But that work here also paralleled my career. I was very fortunate to hook up with WABC in 1969. So I worked at WABC and WPLJ as a parallel experience. And one of the advantages I think that I brought to the station was my commercial experience I shared with the college radio station here. College radio stations typically don't have people working. Typically, they don't have working professionals. So I had the advantage of working professionally and sharing that experience with the students here.
Yeah, and Jeff Kroll earlier today mentioned something to me about you and how your instructions for them worked out. Jeff, why don't you share what you told me? Because I think that's important.
Bill ran this place as he knew a professional station was being run. He just said he was working at WABC and PLJ, which were really on the same floor, right? So it was one and the same. And I had the same experience later on where an AM and an FM are together. And as a radio engineer, you work part of your day with one station, part of your day with the other. But he ran this place, even though we were students. There was a professional attitude to get it right, and it didn't put up with sloppiness. And you didn't get on the air until you could prove that you could handle it, and you didn't edit news cuts until you could prove that you could edit. And we all learned the right way. And this place became a pipeline to the pros. And I have to admit, I benefited from it greatly. When I went out for interviews for jobs, and I started here in 1971, so in the early mid-70s, I'm looking for work in the summers and then eventually permanent. When I went into a place and on my resume it said WCWP, and I said, "Oh, you're one of Mozer's kids? Oh, then you know what you're doing." Not seriously. Oh, okay, he's good. Now, yes, you had to prove your way once you started, but that got you in. Was oh, you're one of Mozer's kids? Well, then you're pretty well trained.
That's got to say really something for you, Bill. You know, from that comment. You know, because I think that's so essential. You know, that you were here at that time. That was a very critical moment in the station's, development and longevity, that you fortunately were here and able to be part of that.
Many people over the course of the years give me credit, and I really have to say that my role here was creating an atmosphere.
Exactly,
where
atmosphere.
Where bright people could learn the skills of broadcasting. And when people say that they attribute their success to me, I said, no, I just created a house here, an atmosphere of professionalism and a encouragement to learn the skills of broadcasting. So
I'll give you one silly example, Art. We used to do a newscast in the afternoons, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And we became sticklers that news must start at exactly 5 o'clock. Now, we weren't hooked up to a network or anything like that. If it went on at 5 minutes, at 30 seconds late or a minute late, the world's not going to come to an end. But we learned the right way that it should start on time. And then myself and so many others go to work at stations like WABC, or in my case over at NBC, where you're affiliated with a network, and yes, the news will start precisely at 5 p.m. or 8 p.m., whatever the time is. That was second nature to us, and back-timing music to the network and just hitting what we call hitting net. It was second nature. We learned it right here. We learned the right way from day one. We weren't sloppy. We had to do it right, and we did.
That's incredible. I mean, that's absolutely incredible that happened that way, and I can really appreciate that. And I think things are meant to happen. I really do. And back when, for whatever reason, I decided to get a job at NBC and didn't, left the mailroom, but wanted to still stay with it, working in the news department at NBC, even though I was getting coffee at the diner on my midnight to 8 shift for the writers, or going out with a film crew during an event just to carry film gear of a major disaster happening in New York City. You learn things that stay with you, so that during my days at Post, at least I wasn't a professional, but I knew how things were done a little bit on the professional level. So I think it all was meant to happen, from you coming and all the others that participated in this. It was just something that evolved over a period of time. And we're going to learn later, when we do an interview with one of our guests, of some of the men and women who went on to great careers in broadcasting, both print, film and as well as audio. So anyway, thank you so much, Bill, for sharing all this. It's been a real great pleasure working with you over the years, that we've been in contact with one another and participating today.
Well, again, people like yourself, the alumni group here is astonishing in terms of its commitment to keeping the family together and the traditions alive. So, and you were in the forefront of bringing some people in prior to the FM days.
Well, it was all meant to happen. Thank you. Thanks again. Wow, that's a song from the past, and a wonderful one too. Bobby Vinton, he was one of my favorite guys too. Well, we said earlier this program today was going to be a special program from a number of reasons. Not only the 58th anniversary of the show being on the air, but what I decided to do, and what we decided to do, Jeff and Pat and others, we wanted to honor those members of the CW Post community who graduated during the 1960s or attended the school, and who went on to serve in the military, serve their country during an era of time of the Vietnam War. And as all of us know who experienced that period of time, it was a controversial time in our history. Students today may not necessarily know much about it, but what we're going to be doing is talking to a couple of folks who were at Post during the 1960s and are actually here in the studio today. And we have with us today my good friend Mike Padula. Mike, how are you?
Fine. Yourself, everyone?
I'm great, thank you. You graduated when, Mike?
75.
1975. And so things were not quite heating up at that time, a little bit. I graduated in 63, and I went into the Marines soon after graduation, but I wasn't, I was an enlistee in the Marine Corps Reserves. You were in the Marines as well. In fact, we have 2 Marines here, with 3 Marines.
Three Marines.
All of us.
I went in the Marine Corps as soon as I graduated high school. I went in July 66.
Okay.
And I got out July 69.
Okay. And sitting next to me is another postgraduate, Jack Cassidy, Jack, when did you graduate?
64, Art.
You graduated
year after you.
a year after me. That's right. And you were. I know we
slow.
were involved in baseball together.
We were.
We were playing.
Threw many ball from third base over your head. But that's, what can I say?
Yeah, from third base to first base. Yes, that's right. Because I was playing first base at the time. But Mike has. Turn your hat over, Mike. Let me see your hat.
It's just a regular hat.
Okay. Mike is usually wearing his Marine Corps hat. I've got a Marine Corps lapel pin in. Jack's got a bigger Marine Corps lapel pin in, and a metal ribbon bar enamel with the silver star on it. So recognizing the Silver Star decoration, which one of our nation's highest awards for bravery. So we're going to be talking about all of that, but also we're going to be talking about their time at school. And what I'm interested in knowing is, here's this bucolic campus that we were part of during that time. It was nowhere near the size that it is now.
No, it was not.
And but still, it's maintained its beauty. No question about it. But it was different. It was small. So we're going to be talking about that and how it was for you on campus. Then we'll talk about what you experienced in Vietnam, because we want to recognize your service and the service of others who will get on the telephone. So, Mike, if you'd start, what do you think about, what was your time life on post?
Actually, it was a, what do you call it, transit. I didn't stay on campus. I'm ashamed to say I have no affinity that I graduated post. To me, it was a business transaction. Met a lot of nice people, but there was undercurrent of still anti-war, and hence that was put on the veterans of it. But all in all, I have no complaints, and it was a good time.
Okay, so what you just said about the sentiments of anti-war, this is, let's see, you graduated in what year?
75. So
75, okay. And when did you enter? That would have been 71?
Probably 71 or 72.
Okay, so the war is just winding down.
Correct.
So when you say there were sentiments, were there demonstrations?
Not really. I remember vividly there was a group of men who got together and tried to make amends or for the war or whatever, and they said, let's pray for all those who have died, and they mentioned the Vietnamese that we fought, and I just walked away. At that time, they were the enemy, and I could not pray for them.
Mm-hmm. So you came to post after your Vietnam service?
Yes.
Okay, that's a different element then.
Totally.
So you were participated in some heavy duty combat. You were at Khe Sanh, weren't you?
I was there for the hill fights with 326. Mm-hmm. I was not there for the siege, but I also went the Battle of Con Thien in September of '67.
Okay, so then you come to post, and these students had lived through, or you were an older person when you when you came to post, right? Jack, you were here with me. We were the same age, basically. I may have been.
I'm much younger, Art.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. Then much. Well, so what was it like for you on campus initially?
I would have to turn around a little different history than Mike. Probably the age of innocence, I would guess, or the last stage of innocence. I came in '60, lived in the dorms here on campus. Suffolk, Nassau, Queens, and whatever else, the 4 dorms that were here. It was a great time. Just wonderful. We were very compact at that particular point, and you're absolutely correct. I think the campus has only gotten more beautiful over the years, and they've kept that atmosphere all the way down the line.
Hold that thought for a minute.
It's Homecoming Weekend on WCWP Brookville.
You're listening to Homecoming Weekend with Art Beltrone on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
So, getting back to that, the innocence and the beauty of the campus. But so I remember, there were things happening in Vietnam. We knew about it, but You know, it was
nobody really did, and I'll be honest with you. You know, I joined the Marine Corps through a PLC program. You went off to boot camp in the summers, okay, and if you graduated and successfully completed the program with them, they would commission you. Now, I thought that was a great deal because they had a program on TV, Gary Lockwood, the lieutenant, and it appeared that all Gary did was basically run around San Diego and Camp Pendleton and go surfing, okay, at Laguna Beach. And I figured, well, boy, I can go out there, for 3 or 4 years. It'll be just like staying in a fraternity. And the it didn't turn out exactly that way. But no, really, I will tell you that probably a good 6 or 7 of my fellow ball players from the football team, I'd go back, Kenny Tomsich, Charlie Balestrino, Pete Treed, who's subsequently passed away, Andy Brennan, Chuck McDonald, an entire group, okay, all joined the Marine Corps. Seems like a great thing to do. They had nice uniforms. It was going to be a good deal. The whole experience of Vietnam, I guess, started when I was down in basic school, and we started to get an idea that this was going to turn into a real thing. And I'll be honest with you, when we actually shipped out of San Diego in '65, everyone thought the thing would be over in 6 months. And everybody was saying, well, gee, we'll get over, we'll get there, we'll, get our ribbons and all come back and everything will be wonderful.
So let me let me ask you this, though. So you graduated in '64. You've gone through the PLC program. Right. So you've gone through that training.
Correct.
So, like, when I was in, it was a 13-week. No, wait a minute. Our boot camp was 12 weeks at the time when I was in. Mm-hmm. But it was at one time, and then you did, the extra training at Camp Lejeune.
Right.
But because you went through the PLC program, and I assume, Mike, you went to Parris Island?
Correct.
You went to Parris Island. Okay, so was it 12 weeks for you?
8.
8 weeks. Oh, they were trying to get you out quicker.
Right.
Oh, they'll get to talk about that. But so it's an immediate transition from college almost. From the time you leave college to the time you're at San Diego ready to ship out, how long is that? What are you talking about?
We're talking May of '64 to basically May of '65.
So 1 year.
1 year.
1 year.
Period of time, yes.
So, and how are you feeling there at the time? Were you...
again... you harken back to, your old movies as far as things are concerned. Here we are shipping out of San Diego, the band's down playing on the piers. Wives and such are saying goodbye. The girlfriends, and my platoon sergeant was next to me and says, well, we're leaving behind our families and now going to see our loved ones in Okinawa. I said, I can't believe this. But it was quite a scene, okay? It was a very positive thing. And I think the reality of it didn't hit until we got to Hawaii. We were the first and the last major ship transport. Okay, it was about 7,000 Marines that were headed out at that point. I guess the Navy scraped together just about every gray bottom they could get to bring us over. And it was literally, we spent about 4 days in Hawaii, and it was something like out of Mr. Roberts, with guys being brought back to the boat and hoisted up on nets onto the ships and so on and so forth. But we're leaving Hawaii again, and had a fellow, the colonel gets on the bullhorn, says, everyone on deck, I want you to take a good look, okay? For a number of you, this will be the last time you see the United States. I said, well, isn't that cheerful?
Oh, my gosh.
You got to be kidding me.
Oh, Jack.
And that's the truth.
I can imagine. We're gonna see a different perspective now. Hear a different perspective by somebody who was in the Air Force during the Vietnam War.
Good clubs.
Hey, Jim Harley, are you there?
Yes, I am, Art.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We've been talking to two Marines here who are postgraduates, Mike Padula and Jack Cassidy. They were in the earlier days than you. You graduated, well, you were pretty close. You graduated from Post, it was 1968, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And I think you indicated that you had come over from Nassau Community.
Right. I had gotten my associate's degree at Nassau first. I hadn't really planned on going to college until I was about to graduate high school, and that was about the only option. Then I transferred to Post. I don't remember particularly why I picked that school, but it may have been the campus. It's a beautiful place, as you know. Yes,
definitely a beautiful place. So then you come to Post, and were you involved in anything here? What besides being a beautiful place, is there anything that occurred or happened that still to this day is embedded in your memory?
Well, I think the most enjoyable part of Post being part of a fraternity. I was part of Phi Kappa Tau. It was quite an interesting experience. I think for our pledge trip, they sent us up to upstate New York. I think we went to Cornell and RPI to see what it was like to live in a fraternity house. And I, in fact, attended a reunion just a couple of years ago. They got together. I don't think they're there any longer on Post. They went defunct, although they're still there nationwide. But yeah, I think fraternity life to me was the highlight for me.
And Kappa Delta Phi, did you say was your fraternity?
No, Phi Kappa Tau.
Phi Kappa Tau. What kind of activities were you involved with there? What did the fraternity do back then on campus?
Yeah, not much. Not much of a social nature. Obviously, it was a party group more than anything else.
Well,
I think they all were, weren't they?
I think so.
Yes.
Jack, you
without a doubt.
I was in Sigma Beta Epsilon. You were in KDR.
KDR, Kappa Delta Rho.
Were you on? Mike wasn't in?
No.
No, you were on your own.
Well, what happened, they wanted me to pledge. This is after 3 years in the Marine Corps, and I wasn't wearing a clown suit on a bus.
Oh, sure. You were in the Marine Corps. You had gone through Vietnam. You were about to go through pledging.
It wasn't going to happen.
Well, now, how do you become into the Air Force? How do you get there?
Well,
Jim?
I graduated, as you said, in June of '68, and had, 1968 was not a particularly good year to try to get into the Army.
Why is that? Why do you say that?
I'm not a hero. I have to be honest about it. I think many people today probably feel guilty whatever they did. Those who went to Canada probably feel guilty they didn't serve. Those who served feel guilty they didn't go to Canada. I did serve. I was in the Air Force, and I flew combat missions over Vietnam, a relatively safe mission. But I hear about the Marines. I was stationed at Da Nang for a while, and we called it the armpit of Vietnam, but the Marines came there for R&R. So the whole situation was difficult, I think, for everybody, for our generation, and it continues to be difficult now.
And you're in the Air Force, but what specifically are you involved with the Air Force?
Well, I started out as a navigator on KC-135, that's air refueling aircraft, and we had several temporary assignments in Thailand where we refueled the planes going into mid-air refueling, refueled them going into Vietnam. And then in '72, I got transferred to a electronic reconnaissance outfit, and I was flying on the EC-47, electronic reconnaissance airplane, over Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. As I said, it was a fairly safe mission. We only lost one aircraft to enemy fire while I was there, so I was very fortunate that I came back for, unlike many of our fellow classmates.
Right, and you did lose one aircraft, and those men were lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story. You can find a lot about it on the web. I don't have any personal knowledge about it, just what other than the fact that I knew it happened. It happened coincidentally right after the peace treaty was signed in, February of 73, I believe. And it was a crew of 8 that got lost. They recovered some of the bodies. There are some things you can read online to suggest that some of the men were captured by the Russians. There's refutation of that as well. I don't know what the true story is, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you so much for your service. Really appreciate it, and thank you for being with us today.
Okay.
You have a wonderful time. Thank you.
Take care, Jim.
Okay, bye.
So we heard from the Air Force, and being in the Marines is something different. You know, my MOS, and for those who don't know, it's what your military occupation is. Military occupation specialty is, and 0311 is being a pure grunt, an infantryman. That's what I was. Mike was too. You were, Mike.
Yes, I was.
What was your? I came out of sergeant.
I came out of E4 corporal.
Okay, E4. And you were just carrying a M14, M16.
M16. I carried an M16. I'd just like to say I was also in Marine Barracks, Keflavik, Iceland for 15 months.
Oh.
So I went from hot to cold.
Oh, my gosh. How about you, Jack? What was your specialty?
Infantry, 0302 basic, and then reconnaissance. I spent all my time basically in the 1st, 3rd, 5th Recon Battalions, 1st Force. So throughout my active duty time, that's what we, except for a stint as down at Quantico was schools demonstrations troops. So.
Right. And for those out there, recon is Marine Corps reconnaissance, which is like special forces that we have today. And I can remember being in Paris Island back in when I went in 60. I was there in 64, and in our barracks, there were those big steam pipes behind the barracks, and in the night we could hear running on top of those steam pipes, and we wondered who the heck is out there running on the steam pipes, and it was the Marine Recon guys that were.
Thank God it wasn't rats, but in any event.
Yes, because it was really loud. We're going to take a break from you two now and go to another veteran who is another postgraduate, and also one of the stalemates of the WCWP. He was one of the driving forces here. John LiBretto. John, welcome to the station.
Art, hi, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Oh, likewise, John, likewise. Why don't you fill folks in on your days here? You were back with, I believe, you had a big hand in the movement of the station from the carrier current to the FM delivery carrier. So tell us about that a little bit.
Well, that's right. I joined the station in 64 as a freshman, and in the spring of 65, we had moved over to the new building. And I was there on the Friday night. We got the telegram from the FCC giving us the authority to turn on the transmitter and go FM. And I was there with Hank Niemark and Mike Cosman. And the three of us were actually we weren't thinking we were going to go on FM. We just got the telegram. We said, well, turn it on. Let's go. And so we went on for an hour or two. We did strictly jazz that night. I think I did the board. Hank read the news, and Mike Cosman did the radio show. And that was March 15th, 1965.
Yeah. The one thing that impressed me in our talking was your career, but also you were able to highlight some of those. Tell us a little bit about where you went from where WCWP took you in later years, and mention some of the other folks who came out of here.
Well, sure. I wanted to go into radio. I think we all thought radio was where it was going to be until after graduation. And in between that, and I know you guys have been talking about the service in Vietnam, and of course I went in the service, but I was able to get a job at NBC right out of college. I pounded the streets of New York and went to every radio station, TV station, and NBC hired me. So it turned out to be a permanent job. It was a draft era. And even if you volunteered, as I did for the Air Force, they had to keep your job. So When I was in the service, I was simply on leave from NBC. So it began a whole 50-year career with NBC, and it was, WCWP was the entree for me. I thought I was going to do radio. It got me, when I got to NBC, I discovered television, and that's where I went. I became a TV director and directed news and sports for, all those years. But there's a whole bunch of people. Hank Niemark, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, was with me the night we turned on the transmitter. Hank has became one of the top stage managers in New York. Worked for many years for PBS. Does a lot of award shows. He's an associate director and an occasional TV director as well. Rita Sands, who was one of our announcers. We always thought she had the greatest voice and was going to eventually become a big star, and she did. She became one of the first women announcers on WNEW-FM when they went all female back in about 1967, 68. She went to ABC News, CBS News, WCBS 880. A couple of a number of engineers who came in later, and I know you spoke earlier to Bill Mozer, Art, and these are guys who all work with Bill at the radio station. Jeff Wright, who has been doing audio at NBC for many years. Joe Honorkamp, who retired, was an engineer at NBC. And Bruce Leonard, who did sound effects for David Letterman for years, was also a WCWP graduate. Ted David, who was on CNBC for about 30 years, over 20 years at least, a big news anchor in business news. Of course, Bill, you spoke to, went at ABC, has been doing soap operas for years there. The late Mark Haynes was a long-time anchor at CNBC, and he's a WCWP graduate. And this year we inducted into the Hall of Fame Fred Gaudelli, who's currently the executive producer of NBC Sunday Night Football, also WCWP. And another friend of mine from our days in the 60s, Fred Blankfein, who went on to work in film, not even in television, and for many years was Woody Allen's first assistant director on 5 of his films. Yeah. So that's just the names that came to me off the top of our head after we spoke the other day.
It's amazing. It's really amazing how successful you all have been, and thank you for your. But let's talk a little bit about your service. What were you in the Army? You were in the Army.
No, I was in the Air Force, actually.
The Air Force. Oh, okay.
Right.
You were in the Air Force, and you had special duty, I believe.
I was picked to be an instructor. When I showed up, I volunteered for the Air Force, and when I got to San Antonio, they said, you're going to be an instructor, and that my first thing came to mind is, they're going to make me a drill instructor and, teach, which is hardly the kind of thing I would do. And they actually tapped me with a whole bunch of other college graduates to become a teacher of English as a second language. And we went to Vietnam and taught English to the Vietnamese Air Force because turns out there's no technical language in Vietnamese. And the only way they could learn to take care of their helicopters and to fly them was to be able to be proficient in English. And that's what we spent our year doing, teaching English in Vietnam. I was stationed in Saigon, mostly at Tan Son Nhut Air Base, but part of the time we were actually in town in Saigon at a school that was built by the Japanese back in World War II. And the building, we converted it to an American school.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, John, thank you so much for your service, both at WCWP, your service with your country in the Air Force, and your name will be forever remembered by us here at the station.
Thanks, Art. It was great to work at the station, and really got me going in the way in my career, and I'll be forever grateful to WCWP as well. Can I just put a plug in? We have Strictly Jazz is going to air, I think, tomorrow night, Saturday night at midnight, with myself and Hank Niemark and Rita Sands hosting, and it'll be fun. It was fun. It will be fun to do a jazz show once again after over 50 years. So I'm just wanted to get that plug in before I got
Well, not only that, but I can just want to state about the excitement that all three of you had in putting that show together for a broadcast. You were so excited about coming back and doing the show, and you physically came back to the station.
We did. It was great fun.
To be back here and to do it. So thank you for doing that, and we'll look forward to listening to it. Thanks again. Thank
You're
you
welcome,
so much.
Art. Great talking to you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.
Art, I'm a little concerned after listening to that litany of success from John that we're not going to set broadcasting back, 100 years here today. I have no idea.
No, this is wonderful because, we're talking about a college that is about to evolve into something more than it was when we were here. It's becoming more than that, and some have, questioned why.
I have mixed feelings.
Well, you were a football player.
That's
you played
correct.
Football.
Yes.
And so, now it's no longer the Pioneers.
No, it's
the
not.
Sharks.
I'm very upset.
So I don't know. I have mixed feelings myself, but things change. And for whatever reason, we're back. We're the alumni. We're involved with something that I still enjoy coming to the station, even though it's LIU Post and but it's still WCWP, and I still enjoyed Brookville, seeing the campus.
Absolutely great.
Right.
However, it should be green and gold, not blue and whatever.
Well, so back to your Mike. Let's shift back to Vietnam a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. So tell us about the action that you saw. What was your involvement? You come out of Post. No, I'm sorry. You're in the Marines, and you're at Quezon.
I was at Quezon for the hill fights. I was not there for the siege, which is totally different. I also participated in the Battle for Cantienne in September of '67. Those were the two main actions that I saw.
Okay. And by the way, we're speaking to Mike Padula, who was a postgraduate
Yes.
later on after he got back from Vietnam. And so Quezon was a rough place.
Well, I think most people think of Quezon, they think of the siege, that 77-day siege. 326 was there, but I was not with them.
Mm-hmm.
I fought on the Battle 689, one of the many hill fights. After that, the next big thing was the Cantienne, September of 7th through the 10th. Then after that, I was done.
Okay. Well, right on the phone right now, we have one of your comrades.
Zappardino.
Ron Zappardino. Ron, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome, Ron, to the program today. And seated with me is your buddy, Mike Padula, and somebody else that you know, Jack Cassidy.
Ron, do you remember me?
Jack, I sure do.
All right. I remember you also. I found out you had a great career afterwards. Rock on tour, bon vivant. So that's absolutely great to hear, Ron.
And Ron, you didn't know that Jack was going to be on the show, did you?
I had no idea.
No, we just learned today.
Otherwise, he wouldn't have shown up.
I learned today that you knew Ron. So, Ron, let's start with your attending Post back in the 1960s. As I understand it, you graduated I know now, the same year that Jack did, 1964. Now, did you know him?
Correct.
Did you know him at Post?
Casually.
Different fraternity. They didn't talk to us.
Okay. You didn't talk to him at all?
No, I talked to him.
Oh, okay.
He never said he didn't talk to me.
Oh, he didn't.
He was just trying to say his fraternity was better than mine.
No, Ron. I remember you were a great dancer.
Oh, thank you very much.
There you are.
How do you remember that?
You had to see his moves.
Oh, okay.
Incredible.
Hey, Ron, show us a couple of moves, will you? Oh, wait a minute, this is radio. Can't do that. But, okay, so what do you remember most of Post, Ron, when you were here?
Well, it's my alma mater. I remember, I think the most important thing to me was the beauty of the campus and how well it was kept and how well that made us feel each day. I just thought the campus was beautiful.
Ron, I thought the girls were pretty good looking, but I could never get a date. I don't know.
Well, that's a better way to go.
Go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I thought all my professors that I had were very good. It was a great atmosphere to go to college in. I felt very fortunate.
What was your major here?
I was a biology major.
And did you go into that afterwards?
Well, I was supposed to go to dental school. And then when I got out of college and went home, the Marine Corps beckoned me. Something in my soul told me I had to fight for my country. And that's what I did.
So wait a minute. You get back home in, 1965? Or
64. Graduated in June.
Okay.
I went home, went to work for Shell Chemical in New Jersey. And 7 months later, in March, I joined the Marine Corps. March 85.
Okay, and what was it? You said something made you do it or encouraged you to do it. What was it? Do you remember the feeling or what?
I felt that the war was being processed in Vietnam and Southeast Asia, and I believed in those days that the domino theory was reality, so I went to fight for my country.
Yeah. What I want to know is what was it like for, and I'll ask Jack to come in on this one too. You're in college, both of you graduated in 1964, and you find yourselves in Vietnam shortly thereafter that graduation. How was it for you, the transition from this beautiful, tranquil setting in Brookville to where you are in Vietnam? Ron, what's your recollection of that?
Well, I think that we were all excited in college. We weren't the type of people that didn't accept responsibility. So the responsibility of fighting for our country offered a lot of ways to express ourselves. And I felt that being an officer in the Marine Corps was a great way to see what my qualifications were and how well I could do.
Did you become an officer, Ron?
Yes, I went to OCS in March of 65. And 90 days later, I was an officer. And I went to Pensacola to flight training to be a pilot. I was a helicopter pilot first in Vietnam. And when I came back to the States, I was a jet instructor. So I had both fixed wing and rotor experience.
Okay, Mike Padula would like to express something here. Go ahead, Mike.
I observed Ron during the Battle of Cantienne. He called in airstrikes. And when everyone was lying down, doing what we had to do, he was standing up. He had 2 phones in his ear. He had his little bush hat pulled down low. And he is a true hero. I don't know if he received any commendations, but I witnessed the hero in action. That's all I want to say, buddy.
Thank
Very
you.
kind.
Thank you for saying that. And you did not know him from Post because you were there after.
No.
So did you? When did you realize he was a Post guy?
I don't know. Sometime after our post-military experience, I went to San Diego. My sister lived there. We went to his restaurant, which is a fabulous restaurant, and we just started talking. And we've maintained a friendship for these past 30 or 40 years. And he was, and he still is a very nice man, very pleasant man. And he is, in my eyes, a hero. And I hope that the Marine Corps recognized his heroism.
Right, and we just learned the telephone call to Ron dropped out.
Oh, okay.
But
then I take everything back.
but Pat is going to try and get him back on.
Okay.
But maybe Jack, you can go back to what I was saying about the transition between Post and Vietnam.
Well, don't forget we went through Marine Corps boot camp, so that transition, wasn't that drastic. I will tell you, at that particular point, 1965, it was still a great adventure. As I said, the attitude then was that, okay, we'll go over, it'll be a few giggles and we'll come back in 6 months. That didn't turn out to be the case. So consequently, I think we all sobered and grew up very rapidly, okay? The first time you start to get into a firefight and take casualties, the reality of what it's all about, okay, it comes home. And though I don't wish this on anyone, I think to experience that would turn around and say to you, we try to avoid war and conflict whenever we can, only as a last resort.
Thanks for sharing that, Jack. And we just learned that Ron is back on the line. And Ron, I want to tell you that your buddy Mike has said some very nice things about you that you could not hear. I don't think you could hear it, but he did say that. We lost you on the line, but you're back now, right? Welcome back.
Yes. California's too far away, I guess.
That's right. You're in California now, so it travels a little bit differently. But Ron, he was commenting on something that and you acknowledged what he said about you standing up and directing things. And but you did you know him well at that time? You didn't know each other, right?
No, we did not.
Yeah, it's only after you went to the restaurant that you became associated.
You have to remember, he was an officer and I was an enlisted man. We couldn't play together.
Yeah, right. I guess that's...
Well, I don't know about that.
One more thing, Art. There's a book called Ambush Valley.
Right.
About the Battle of Compiègne that 326 participated in. And if you read it, Ron is prominently mentioned throughout the book.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I know of the book. I haven't read it, but I will read it. Look that up.
He's a legitimate hero.
Ron, thank you so much for your call. It's been wonderful spending this time with you, and thank you for your service to the nation and to the Marine Corps. And you be well, buddy. Thank you.
Ron, impressive. Stay well.
I'll call you later, pal.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.